In this video we're going to keep looking at solving quadratic equations, but the only difference really with this video is how we present our answer. In a lot of questions in the exam they ask you to give your answer as a surd, and we know what surds are already. We've covered surds. Examples of surds might be square root 13 or square root 62. Anything like that is an example of a surd. So here's an example of a question. Let's say they give us 3x squared minus 10x plus 4 equals 0. And they ask us to solve this simultaneous equation, but they want their answer given as a surd. So first thing we do is we look at the equation and we say, yeah, that's a quadratic trinomial, and quadratic trinomials are always in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. So we have to identify what's our a number, which is going to be 3. So a equals 3. Our b number is going to be minus 10, and remember it's really important to include that minus. And our c number is going to be 4. So now we have our a, b and c. We then, as we did before, we go and we write down our minus b formula. So this is in your log tables. It's minus b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then we solve. So we've minus b, now that's minus our b, which is minus 10, plus or minus square root of b squared is minus 10 squared minus 4 times our a number, which is 3, times our c number, which is 4, all over 2 times our a number, which is 2 times 3. Now what I suggested you do in the last video is you actually solve this bit in the square root sign separately. So at the side you figure out what your b squared minus 4ac is, just because otherwise it gets very messy in your calculator. So we have minus 10 squared minus 4 times 3 times 4. Minus 10 squared will be plus 100. A minus times a minus gives us a plus. And when you have 3 numbers being multiplied, let's do 2 together first. So we've minus 4 times minus 3 will give us minus 12 times 4. So that's 100. Minus 12 times 4 is minus 48. And putting that all together, that gives us 52. So now rather than doing that all in one go on your calculator, if you do this at the side, it just makes it a little bit easier. So going back to our question then, we have minus 10 is plus 10, plus or minus square root of 52 all over 6. Now technically you've done what they wanted. They said to give your answer as a surd, and you've given your answer as a surd. If you type this into your calculator, it will probably simplify it down for you a little bit further as well, but you should really be comfortable with doing that yourself, with simplifying this down yourself. So how could we simplify this down? Well, if we look at the surd, the square root 52, do you remember we could, or you might remember we can simplify this by writing it as a product of 2 other surds. And when you're doing this, the trick is to think of square numbers, because you want one of these numbers to be a square number. So our square numbers are 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, and so on. So what we want to do is we want one of these to be a square number. Now what I usually do is I start at the bottom and I just check. Start at the smallest square number, which is 4, because 1 is really no good to you, and check, does 4 go into 52 evenly? So if I divide 52 by 4 in my calculator, it does, I get 13. So we can rewrite this surd as square root of 4 times square root of 13. So let's put that back into our answer. We have 10 plus or minus square root of 4 times square root of 13 all over 6. Well, how is this simplifying things for us? Well, square root of 4 can be written as 2, and that's why we wanted one of those numbers to be a square number, because it will simplify down to a whole number. And we now have 10 plus or minus 2 square root 13 over 6. Last step, remember this is the same as 10 over 6 plus or minus 2 root 13 over 6. So if we look at that, 2 goes into every number there, so this could be rewritten as 5 over 3 plus or minus 2 goes into 6, 3 times 2 goes into 2 once, so square root 13 over 3, which again, we can join up those fractions again. Sorry, something's going on here with the computer. Hold on. Yeah, we can join up those fractions again, and that will give us 5 plus or minus square root 13 all over 3. And that's your answer really. The only last thing you have to do is split that into 2 to give you 5 plus square root 13 over 3 and 5 minus square root 13 over 3. And now we've left our answers as served, just like they requested in the question.